Hey, welcome to Horns Up. I'm Animesh.
And I'm Peter.
And 2 weeks into the new year, we are catching up. This is our albums of the year list for 2022. Are we doing this a bit late, or has that extra 2 weeks of time just helped us make better decisions?
I'll go first. It helped me make better decisions far easier. I think in all the years that we've been doing this together, which by the way now is the fourth year,
Mhm.
it's been the fastest, I think.
You've actually been compiling a lot of lists this year, haven't you?
Yeah, it was fun. So basically, I wasn't sure if both of us were gonna do this. And you know, this is what happens when you do podcasts, right? You enjoy that banter, you enjoy the back and forth, you enjoy listening to what other people also enjoyed listening to, right? And talking
Mm-hmm.
about that. So I was like, what do I do? What do I do? And it was a Saturday night. So I suddenly just wrote to everyone who I normally talk to metal about or chat. And I just basically put together a list of what everyone listened to and just asked them for one album. And it was quite interesting that from the 13 people I spoke to, I got 12 unique albums. So there was only one album that was repeated by two people. That's it.
Okay. Do you want to spoil that album right now, or does it come up in your list as
No,
well?
it doesn't come up in my list. It doesn't come up in
Okay.
my list.
Which album is it? I don't know if it comes up in my list because yes, just like every year, we haven't actually shared our lists at all. I've noticed Peter's tweets, but I haven't even checked out the spoiler or anything of that sort. So I'm coming to this completely blind as usual.
So the album actually that came up on two people's list. One is Anurag Taggett, who of course everyone knows has been a guest, and an old friend of mine called Seth Werkeiser. Both of them actually picked Ithaca They Fear Us.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that was interesting, right? Just to
That was
see.
interesting. That's an interesting choice for album of the year.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing I learned, right? Is that everyone has such different choices
Tastes.
of
Yeah.
tastes and stuff like that. So it was good to kind of put that together, but also got me to kind of think about what stuff I've been listening a lot to, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, if you're curious, we'll link that over here, but that was
Of course,
fun
yeah,
to
yeah, that we will. That's
put
up on
together.
Trend Crusher's personal
Yeah.
blog. Okay, cool. So, just like last year, we started this last year. We're doing multiple lists. We're doing a non-metal list because, yes, it's we do subject our ears to other things other than metal. We're doing an honorable mentions, and then we'll go into our top 10. Every list is ranked. At least I've done that. Have you ranked all your lists?
Oh man, I couldn't rank non-metal. It was weird because disclaimer, because I'm going to be saying this a lot. A lot of the non-metal I listened to was just okay, I'm going to chill out, do some writing or do something else, and I'll put that on. And it just kind of became my
Hmm. I
thing. So
found a few, yeah, I found a few metal albums to do that along with, actually, which have actually ended up being on my top 10 too.
okay.
Anyways, let's get into it then. Non-metal. Why don't you share yours and then I'll show you mine?
Okay.
Okay then.
So my five albums that I've picked non-metal unranked. First is actually should be someone who's no surprise to metalheads. Greg Puciato. He released an excellent album, Mirror Cell, and if you enjoy Dillinger Escape Plan, then you will not like this at all because this is the total other end of the spectrum. But I really loved the alt rock grunge vibe that it kind of had, and it was really cool to just kind
Yeah.
of hear Greg in a completely different voice, so to say. So
Finding
that was
himself
there.
as a vocalist.
Yeah, and then you had Havard. I think that's how it's said. I mean, it's Norwegian musician. He's actually, if you look up the one of the original members of Satiricon and also an early member of Ulver. And this album is what I was referring to earlier, right? It's a largely acoustic album, great album to kind of wind down to.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the visuals that they have, it's just that icy cold sparse area in Norway or in the north. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's really cool. I enjoyed that album. So it's a self-titled album.
Okay.
Other than that, Ian Blurton's Future Now, the album is Second Skin. It's a Canadian rock band, and Ian Blurton, someone who's been around for a while. So it's like good old rock and roll mixed with some psychedelia. After that, this is a surprise, and this was not even on my radar till like I'd say November sometime.
Okay.
It's a Japanese singer-songwriter called Joji, and
Okay.
it's the album Smithereens. I had,
Okay.
honest to God, never heard of this artist, but I started going down the rabbit hole of, these playlists that Spotify creates for you based on the artist. And
Mm-hmm.
once I was on this chill playlist, chill mix playlist, something like that, and this track came on, and I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Let me go listen to the rest of the album. And I've been doing that ever since. Like, this is one of those albums in there. Uh, Very interesting, I may say, like, because it's not something that I would have normally like gravitated towards, or if like someone recommended to me, I would be like, who's this guy? But yeah, I didn't even know he was a Japanese artist. I just knew it was Joji. Then I had to like Google who he was when I was making this list.
Okay.
Uh, the last one actually I think should be a huge surprise to everyone, including you. It's actually Raman Negi Shakhsiyat. Wow, fuck, I can't even say that. But
Congratulations. You
so
got it right.
Raman's actually the former frontman of the Indian rock band The Local Train,
Okay.
and this is his debut album. Honest to God, I was not a fan of The Local Train. It's only like thanks to his album now I've gone back and listened to some of the Local Train stuff. And yeah, so it's like a mix of like, guitar rock with like
Mm-hmm.
Hindi vocals. And for someone like me who's not like very fluent in Hindi, it was fun just to like see the wordplay and how it's kind of done. I mean, like, I don't even know what shakhsiyat means, but yeah, it's one of those things. But someone who you know pretty well, Gaurav Chintamani of the
Mm-hmm.
band Advaita,
Advaita.
he produced it.
Okay.
So yeah, it's got like good amount of groove and things like that in there. And yeah, I'm actually going to be watching Raman Negi perform live tomorrow. Can you believe me
Wow.
going for a Hindi rock act? So that's going to be interesting. Uh, and there, and I'll definitely report back what that's like to be at a non-metal gig.
Cool. Cool. I'm glad
So
you're enjoying
those are,
yourself.
yeah, so that those were my five picks. Over to
Okay.
you, Animesh.
Alrighty. So I've cheated a bit because there are actually seven albums that I wanted to talk about. Um, Coming in at number six, uh, Kirk Hammett's personal EP, Portals. I don't know. Have you heard it?
No,
Did you
I
even
didn't
know
hear.
Kirk Hammett had a personal EP that
No,
came out in 2022?
no.
It's surprisingly good and very Joe Satriani-esque, which makes
Okay.
sense, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's surprisingly good. And it's an EP, so you don't waste a lot of time on it.
Okay.
Coming in at number five is actually these two albums, but coming together at number five. And they're on the non-metal list because you'll understand why. One is Beautiful Distortion by The Gathering, and the other is Innate Passage by Elder.
Oh,
Uh,
that's interesting that you put Elder in non-metal.
uh, Come on, the past two Elder albums have been what they have been,
Yeah.
and yeah, this is soothing music, palate cleansing music, music to calm yourself to. Number four for me is something that I talked about earlier in our half yearly list as well. The Weekend's Dawn FM. I think my favorite pop artist today. I'm guessing, yeah.
Yeah.
Check it out. End to end, bookended by lovely Jim Carrey playing an RJ as such on a channel called Dawn FM. It's a conceptual album. You'll dig into it, etc. I love the weekend's vibes. Coming in at number three is again an album that I talked about earlier, Blood Incantations, Time Wave Zero.
Yeah.
which to me is the ambient album of the year as such. Number two is uh, because just the amount of times I've been subject to it, but also because they are fucking awesome songs. I'm calling it assorted BTS projects because they're not really albums, but they are songs that I groove to. The first one is called Bad Decisions by BTS, Benny Blanco, and Snoop Dogg. It has the most hilarious Snoop Dogg lyrics ever. Like in the first verse, Snoop Dogg basically like is somebody who's rhyming cat with bat, like that kind of a rhyme. And you will be like,
Mm.
why is Snoop Dogg doing that? And then the second verse, when he comes in, he suddenly steps up the game and shows everyone why he's Snoop Dogg. Mad, 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 awesome song. And the other one, I don't know if you've ever heard this. It's a song called Sexy Nukem.
What?
Okay. Sexy Nukem by Blaming Tiger and RM, or let me get this right. Rap Monster, who's the who's one of the members of BTS. I'm sorry, I forgot his name. I still can't tell who's who in BTS.
I'm sure Karen will forgive you. It's okay.
Yeah, but that song, oh my god, you have to check it out because it's so heavy
Okay.
and it's mad bouncy. Like if that was pop music, I'd be a pop music guy. Like if
Okay.
that was the sound of pop music throughout, definitely. But yeah, my non-metal album of the year is actually a soundtrack and something borrowed from a motion picture. Um, the I'm talking about the soundtrack album music inspired by the movie Wakanda Forever, Black
Well,
Panther Wakanda Forever. Uh, Rihanna and Thames put together the inspired by album, the music from an inspired by album, and Ludwig Göransson did the OST. Beautiful, just absolutely beautiful. Connected on a really personal level with me, especially the songs "Alone" by Burna Boy, and "Interlude" by Stormzy. Oh my God, full feels helped me process a lot. Yeah, so that was the non-metal list.
that Wakanda Forever movie, that movie, man. I wish it was still in cinemas, like, cause just an experience. And I'm
Yeah,
glad I got
right.
to enjoy it with my son, right? Because now he's actually getting into the whole Avengers and he understands all of the things.
Okay, cool. Let's get into our honorable mentions.
Okay.
Did you rank this?
No, man. It was so
Okay,
hard.
cool.
Trust me. Like I have to put a disclaimer here. I had like some 20 plus albums and then I had to like rank it and I knew like which one were going in honorable mentions and then I realized I
Mm-hmm.
had like 12 or 14 in my main list and I'm like, okay, these have to go in the honorable mentions. But the fact that they like made it to the honorable mentions just says that they were like this close to
Yeah,
being in the
I
main.
mean, yeah. Like there are several artists who I contemplated including, um, like while going through what all I've listened to, like you'd be surprised, but there's no Devin Townsend in my honorable mentions or in my long list. There's no long distance calling. There's no Dark
Dude,
Throne. There's no Astrosaur. There's no Autopsy.
and that's the thing, right? I think like let's put some context to our before we get into our list is that 2022 has been the year that everyone and their uncle released an album literally.
Yeah,
Like everyone put out music, right? And the that goes back to the fact that like when I crowdsourced that list I was like I didn't know the Gathering even released an album.
exactly.
Like
Right.
that's the kind of level and like I'm someone who's subjected to like 10 releases
Mm-hmm.
every day kind of thing, right? So yeah, it was crazy 2022. So but I think like it also made it easier, right? Like a lot of the stuff I just kept going back to. That's how the list became easier for me to do.
Okay, cool. So let's do honorable mentions because it's not because you haven't ranked it. Shame on you. We had so much fun last year. Okay, cool. Honorable mentions. Why don't you share yours, then I'll share mine.
Okay. Alphabetic order, because that's easy for me to do. Cloud Rat, Threshold. Fucking loved this album. It's like exactly the chaotic grindcore that I enjoy. So that's there. Dusk, The Imaginary
Hmm.
Dead. What a
Yeah,
fucking
that was a
brilliant
great album. Yeah.
yeah. And like you could tell just the amount of like detail and attention paid to it because there's so many different parts and there's so many different layers. So that's there. Implore, The Burden of
Mm-hmm.
Existence. Fuck, like that album is like just reading through those lyrics and just kind of like going through it was really something. And it took me a while to just kind of like process it and kind of get beyond just the music itself. But there's a lot of like angst and a lot of things like poured into that. Uh, Meshuggah Immutable is the
Immutable.
only album that kind of comes in back again, but yeah, that fucking album still stands. And I know like in June we were talking about it, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
not gonna like ramble more on. But the last album on this, and this is a fucking killer release. I really enjoyed it, and it like almost made it to the top 10. Is Rip to Shreds Jubian.
Okay.
I mean, that's like a fucking like literally Andrew Lee is a guy who's a fucking shredder. So he just like literally like, and he has so many projects. So the
Mm-hmm.
fact that like he got this album out, and I'm really glad like they're on Relapse because now they're getting like far more coverage than they would earlier. So yeah, those were my five picks. Now I'm very curious to see how much of overlap is there in our honorable mentions.
Almost none. Almost
Yeah, yeah.
none. Okay, cool. I've actually done six because the one album that like you'd be surprised by this. Um, and this is in ranked order, so I'm going from six to one. Actually, this is not even six. Okay, this is just an album that I wanted to talk about because it's Machine Heads of Kingdom and Crown.
Hmm.
And I'm including this only because we had collectively zero expectations from this album. In fact, I would go on to say that we had sub zero expectations
Yeah,
from this album. And it wasn't bad. I remember
yeah.
discussing this with Ravi and you and saying that it was more enjoyable than Megadeth's latest,
And
right?
I think that's one of the things about that album, right? Like I think with uh fuck, why am I forgetting his name?
Rob Flynn.
With Rob Flynn, right? The fact that he stopped trying to make the next The Blackening, in a way, for me, was like why this album kind of came out. Like I know there is similarities between this album, but the fact is
Yeah,
like it's not like The Blackening Part Two, and I think that was one of those
yeah.
things.
And
Uh,
also, it's not the latest trend in
mm,
metal.
which is one of the things that he always has, I think,
Yeah, right.
fallen.
Every album is pretty much like whatever's trending at the moment.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So now actually getting into so that was a pure honorable mention because nobody would have expected that. Now actually getting into the honorable mentions. Coming in at number five, Lorna Shore with Pain Remains, a deathcore album.
you liked that? I couldn't go through the album, man.
Dude, okay, so I'll tell you why I really liked it because to me it's one of the best sounding albums I've heard this year. It's so heavy, but it's
Yeah.
so dense. It's so dense, and it left me feeling overwhelmed and awestruck because it's lyrically beautiful and
Mm.
musically violent as fuck. It's like constantly being pummeled by jackhammers all the time, and yet being nice to listen to. Not in a grindcore way or not in a death metal way, but in this kind of a deathcore kind of a fashion with the synths and the thousand other things going on. Like I'm I don't know. I think this album has been has a lot of material to go through, etc. in terms of coverage. But I'm not really sure if there's anybody who's done like a interview with the band or the producer on how they made this, because this would be an interesting thing to watch out for or to listen to. Um, So cool. Yeah, that album. It's it takes a lot for you to listen to it. So I really don't know how many people will last the entire album because it's also pretty long. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's a great album. Coming in at number four, something that I've spoken about earlier, the Sacristolis Among the Fires of Hell. We spoke
Oh
about
yeah.
this in our half year picks episode. I'd included it then as well. And even though Rotting Christ actually did end up releasing an EP this year too, right? Called the Apocryphal Spells Volume 1. It's the solo album that was, to me, a better listen because on the solo album, the sound goes back to Dead Poem era Rotting Christ, and
Yeah.
Sakis uses the spoken words vocal style that's pretty much like similar to one of the podcasts I'm producing these days. Mhm.
But I must say, right? Like I think you hit the nail on the head. I think like for a lot of people who enjoyed that Dead Poem era of Rotting Christ, right? Like I remember listening to that album and really enjoying it, and then you telling me about Sakis's solo release, and I was like, oh fuck, this is fun. So I'm glad like all the singles are now all in one place, and you can actually
Exactly.
get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Coming in at number three is Man Eating Orchid with Hive Mind. Yes, it released in 2022, right? It seems like ages ago.
Crazy, yeah, yeah.
It's again something that I've kept on listening to from the half year list as well. Sharp, extreme angularity. Um, we got to see them live. We got to play with them live. It was fantastic. It's not an album that you leave in the background because there's so much going on all the time. Listen with headphones and check out our chat with band members Kaushal and Vinay on episode 180 if you haven't yet. Um, at number two, again, one of our guests there last year, Skullfist with the beautiful Paid in Full. Classic metal, the way it should be done. Zack and Skullfist. Wow, it's just a slab of music that's so much more grown up than the past offerings, right? Super enjoyable and great example of a musician putting their entire self and their personality into their art. If you want to check out more, you can listen to our insanely candid chat with Zach
Yeah.
on episode 186. One of the highlights of the year in terms of horns up interviews and etc. too. And coming in at number one is an EP called Dive Bar Devil by this band called Leather Lung.
Oh,
Six
okay.
song EP. Absolutely lives up to the name. The name was Dive Bar Devil. I
Hmm.
don't remember how I ended up listening to this, but I remember exactly when I did. I was driving down Chakala, okay, on my way to a shoot at Bay 99. And this, and like I had like around, I had estimated around 20 minutes of for the drive for an insanely short distance because that's just how traffic this road is. And this was a 17-minute EP. So I said, okay, cool, let's put this on. And it completely changed my mood from usual resting annoying face or usual grumpy face to absolute exuberant metal we can solve every problem in the world face. It's become that EP that you need to squeeze into your commute and to basically change your mood from what the fuck is this traffic to oh my god, I love life. So check that one out if you guys haven't. It's called Leather Lung Dive Bar Devil.
Okay, awesome. That sounds interesting and also something I definitely want to check out.
You will like it.
Okay.
You will like it. Alrighty, cool. Non-metal albums done. Honorable mentions done. You've ranked your top 10, I hope.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Cool. So do we do this the same way? Three, two,
Yeah, yeah,
one
yeah.
albums
Obviously,
on this
obviously,
thing?
obviously.
Alrighty. Coming in with our metal albums of the year for 2022. At number
Da-da-da-da-da.
10, 3, 2, 1.
Temple of
Sumalan's
Void.
Dream Killer.
Oh,
Hmm. Okay, cool.
you go first.
I go first. You've heard the Sumalan's
I've heard
album, I'm guessing.
I've heard a single or two, I think.
Okay. This like came out of left field. I hadn't heard of this band before, but classic 80s heavy metal, big choruses, a singer who can actually sing, and just 35 minutes. And in those 35 minutes, you have riffs that you can air guitar to. It's a very hard-working album. Don't like get me wrong over there. You can tell because each nuance has been realized to its fullest extent, right? So, for example, you'll have solos where the last note could just be left as a note, but instead you have either a hammer on pull off or happening there, or a vibrato happening there, etc., etc. Same to go with the riffs, same to go with the drums, same to go with the vocals. Very hardworking album. And also shows production wizardry because apparently it's a producer's album,
Hmm.
right? So I didn't know that. I'm just like I got that by reading other people's descriptions of the band, etc. And my suggestion is to put this on when you've just hit the largely empty highway after getting out of traffic cities. It's bound to make you smile. It'll again one of those albums that'll make you appreciate life and go like, holy shit, life is worth living. All right.
That's a
You've got Temple of Void.
yeah, and that's the thing, right? I mean, like honestly, I haven't even gone through the Sumalan's album because of reasons like I mentioned earlier in the episode. And yeah, Temple of Void is 10, and a lot of people will be like, "What the fuck? It's 10," but then you'll realize
Don't worry,
as
I will bring that number up quite
you will
significantly.
average it
I will
out. But
average it out.
yeah, but the thing is, it's just been that kind of year, and also the fact that like we were really excited
Yeah.
for the Temple of Void album. It came out. We had a chance to speak to the band, and
Hmm.
yeah, it fucking totally lived up to expectations. I mean, like everything that you wanted from the Temple of Void album, you got. So yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
it is like full spoilers, etc., etc. It's coming up much higher on my list too because to me this was the album that absolutely rewards you for being a fan of the band,
yeah, yeah, totally. And I
right?
think it's there's so much right that goes on in that album that with each repeated listen, you're rewarded with more. So
Hmm.
since you're going to be talking about it, I'm going to stop right there. Let's do number nine.
Okay, cool. Three, two, one. Ken mode null.
Nine. Oh, wow. Kenmode showed up there. Okay. Should I
Yeah.
go first?
Yeah, why don't you go first?
So, Ninth Voices of the Cronian Moon.
Mm-hmm.
Again, an album that's been like on since June for me, right? And this is one of the few albums that continue for my list. I really enjoyed it. And, you know, with a lot of albums that release, I think in the first quarter of the year, you always wonder, like, will
Will
this
they actually stick on?
stick
Yep.
on, right? And for me, this did because I'm still listening to it. It combines what I realize in a very strange way, looking at my list, two things that I have a lot in my list, like black metal, which showed up surprisingly this year,
Yeah.
and heavy metal, right? So it's like,
Oh shit. Now that you mentioned that, I think we're gonna have commonalities there too.
yeah, so that was quite nice. But I think you should just keep Ken mode short because I also have it on my list. Just saying.
Hey, I have night on my list, and it's way higher than your position. But yeah, I mean, Voices of the Cronian Moon, like way back in March when it was released in March, or when we first heard of it, and like I shared this album by telling you I think this is going to be the metal album of the year for me,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, I
Is it?
remember
I
that.
don't know. You have to listen on to the rest of the episode to find out. But yeah, it's on my list too. And the album, it's just beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Leather and denim heavy metal that takes everything you know about the genre and amps it up with tons of attitude and authenticity. To know more, check out our chat with the band on episode 174. Ken Mode, again, who's surprised that it's on both of our lists,
Yeah.
right? Um, Way higher up for you, not very high up for me, but still. Um, I'll just say this at the moment. Check out our chat with Jesse, episode 203. That's honestly, yeah, again, one of the highlights of the year of 2022 when it comes to episodes of Horns Up. Yeah, I'll talk more about it when eventually you get up to it. Okay, cool.
Okay.
We're doing a lot of this. I'll talk more about, which is a good sign, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Number
Okay.
eight,
Number eight. Three, two, one.
Ghost
Escuela
Imperia.
Grind, Memory Theater. Wow. Okay.
Oh,
You've been going on and on about this Ghost album ever since it released. And this was the first Ghost album that I really didn't get into. What the fuck is
so
happening?
so the thing is, this was like my album of the year in June, right? So you have to
Correct.
realize that
Correct.
for it to drop all the way to eighth, how much music has been released since then. But I think this is the year that I mean, I have to be honest. Like, other than Opus, the first
Eponymous.
one,
Yeah.
Eponymous, this is the only one I've really enjoyed because
Mm-hmm.
there's just so much happening. And at the end of the day, I think when I listen to this album, I'm like, why the fuck is Ghost not like selling out stadiums at this
Isn't
point, right?
Ghost selling out stadiums?
I mean, like being way bigger than it is, right? Like, why is like because it has all the elements uh in there, right? It's got the theatrics, it's got this. I mean, and I think like I actually went down the YouTube rabbit hole and I found the first show that Ghost ever played.
Okay.
And that was just like nothing's changed if you think about it. Like because they when they were playing like small dive bars, they were still with that entire theatrics and stuff. So that's kind of cool. It's just like now you've got the pyro and all of that other stuff. But yeah, I've really enjoyed this album, and strangely enough, it got picked up on TikTok, so they did a re-release of a track also.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's the thing, right? Like the fact that it's picking up on trends and things like that, like tells me that I don't think this is the last we're hearing. Of course, there's
Oh,
going to be
definitely
like
not. Definitely not.
way
Yeah.
more.
Way more. I think
But
it's one of the few bands that's going to eventually become the next stadium arena rock
easy.
bands of all time, of this
Easy.
generation, whatever this generation means. Okay, at number eight for me, SQLR Grind with Memory Theater. Um, I don't know. Do you have SQLR Grind on your list?
No, man,
Good,
it's
because
been
I
that.
don't have
Yeah.
Ghost on my list at all. Okay, so Memory Theater is, or rather, SQLR Grind is an introduction on grindcore and power violence. Again, a band name that perfectly encapsulates the band's sound. 22 minutes of sweet surrendering to chops and head bobs. By chops, I mean those chops, right? Any Indian heavy metal fan who's been to a Gutslit gig will know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
One more, check out episode 205 with vocalist and founding member Katerina. This this album is the soundtrack to bop around people who want to go to a bar and party, or who want to go to like bar hopping, etc., and party, but that's just not your scene, right? So if you're in a position like that, put this one on. You'll thank me later in life.
Yeah,
Cool.
and I think there was a lot that Escuela Grind also I saw because I remember getting their earlier releases, and now you can see the difference that being on a larger metal label kind of has. So I'm glad to see that on your list.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Young and upcoming band. Yay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Number seven.
Gaira Mirage.
Okay. Blood Command with Praise Armageddon.
Okay.
Armageddonism.
So Gaira is an interesting band, right? I have to give a shout out to Kunal Choksi from Transcending Obscurity because I actually discovered the band thanks to him when they was earlier signed to his label
Mm-hmm.
before now joining Season of Mist. And one thing about them, right, is, and I'm going to say this again on the later on in the episode, but this year's been the year where I've fallen in love with black metal again. And
Yeah.
Gaira is one of those bands, right? Because you just get lost in this album. There's just like so much happening, and for me, it's not one of those albums you can kind of play in the background and just listen to kind of thing. You want to like give your full attention, get lost into it, and enjoy that thing, right? Go along with the band on that journey, and that's why like Mirage is part of my top 10. But
Hmm.
go ahead, Blood Command.
Tet pop. This album deserves the award of um, Hakka Noodles with Kali Dal album of the year. It's not supposed to work, but damn, it works. I still remember your reaction to the album and just how much fun I had with it. Episode 200 featuring our chat with vocalist Nikki Blumen. If you want to know more about it, this is the album that you pick to perplex others around you and then to get them hooked on to what is noisy music in air quotes. Blood Command, such a fun album, possibly the most fun album of the year. Okay, cool. Number six.
Okay.
Three, two, one. Storm Ruler,
Sai,
Sacred
Shiki.
Rites, and
Oh,
Black Magic.
interesting.
Sai.
Hmm. I
I
mean,
I actually haven't heard it yet. Is it still as high as ever?
oh, that's the thing, right? Like, basically, what I really love first is Marai, the
Mm-hmm.
frontman and like the mastermind behind Sai, always says that this is an album that people are going to fucking hate, and I don't, because I think that's the amount of effort and everything that he puts into each album, right? And Shiki is all in Japanese,
Okay.
right? So you don't fucking understand anything. And I it's one of those albums. Like, I mean, I've been a Psy fan, right? I've
Yeah.
really enjoyed their earlier music and stuff like that. So I'm always curious to know like what more are they going to do? And it's Psy as ever. Like I don't think at this point like calling them avant-garde or whatever is there.
Yeah, it
It's just
doesn't
that
do them justice.
yeah,
They're
because
a sigh.
yeah, and it's kind of cool just to see that the fact like I know, and that's what happens, right? I think like with every album cycle, Marai keeps saying like this is the last album, and then suddenly like 2 3 years later he's like, okay, I have one more. So it's really nice. And I think in a way also they're like now gone to those like the fact that he released it with lyrics in Japanese as it's also gone back to the roots of sorts, right? And I really enjoyed it in there. That's why it's number six. But
Yeah. Cool. So it's the first of two black metal albums on my list. I think by now you and I already know what the other black metal album is, right? Yeah.
I
But
just want to see
anyway,
what number it comes. That's all.
so Storm Ruler, Sacred Rites, and Black Magic is a 20-song epic that takes you on this fantastical melodic black metal adventure. It's very straightforward, right? I mean, if you've been a fan of melodic black metal, then you know exactly what you're getting with this album, but it's so immersive. I think, like you spoke about Mirage, this one too just envelops you and then makes you want to sit down and listen to it in a stretch. And with this, safely say that USBM is in safe hands. Guess what, guys? It's got bass and it's got solos and it's got acoustic guitar and it's got flamenco. So eat shit, black metal purists. This album is the one that you should pop up when you search. No, this album is the one that should pop up when you search YouTube for music to help you work better. So instead of seeing lo-fi girl studying to beats, you should see Storm Ruler, Sacred Rites, and Black Magic.
But one second, how's it 20? How's it
It's
even on one CD or
because it's
one?
around what, an hour and something.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
have
I
to
think
confess,
it clocks under 80 minutes definitely. I think it's around an hour 14 or an hour 15 or something of that sort.
I know there was a lot of hype around this album when it came out, and I remember getting the promo and sending it to you. But then, like,
Yeah.
I never ended up
We even wrote to the
checking out.
band, etc., trying to see if they could come on
Hmm.
and do a chat with us,
Vaguely.
but I like, yeah, they just didn't get back. Whatever. Okay, cool. Whew. Five down, five to go. Number five, three, two, one.
Ken
Wofat,
mode
the
null.
singularity. Okay, cool. So let me first take the shine with Wofat. Um, assuming this isn't on your list.
No, no,
Yeah,
not.
this has been something that's been on my list right from when it released. Even had it on my half yearly list. Another immersive behemoth of an album. It's a very long album again, around an hour 16 minutes. Only 7 songs, with the last song being like almost. It should have been its own EP or should have been its whole album, maybe. Right. Um, time just flew by when listening to this. Right, the amount of emotion that's weaving in and out as such, constantly pushing and pulling, exciting and relaxing at the same time. Superb album. The cover art is beautiful to keep staring at. Check out our chat with Ken Stump on episode 184. This album was the oral equivalent of how to achieve Zen mode in an hour.
Yeah, I think that's a very apt description.
Yeah.
But moving on to
From
Ken mode,
Zen mode to Ken mode.
oh my God. I mean, like, so here's context. We knew this album was coming,
Yeah.
right? But what I wasn't prepared for is just what kind of fucking oral assault it was going to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically not an easy listen. It's not something that you can be like, ha, I don't have something to listen to. Let me go. Like it's like I
Yeah.
think you have to be. This album should literally not come with those like parent and advisory kind of thing. It should come with like other advisory
Warnings.
or
Yeah.
warning. Like this will fucking fuck you up so bad. Like an hour later, you'll just be wondering why I listened to this album. That kind of warning, I would say. But yeah, man. I mean, having said all that aside, I'm really excited to know that there's one more album coming out this year, right? So just like if you haven't heard Ken Mode Nullas yet, don't worry, listen to it now and then catch up because there's more of that coming. And I have to give a shout out to Hate 56
Mm-hmm.
because they did a Sunny did a coverage of Ken Mode when I think they played New York. So that's up on the channel, and I think like until we manage to get Jesse and the rest of the guys down to India, that's the best that we can do to kind of watch Ken Mode live. But
Yeah, we
yeah,
don't have
it's
tacos in India, but we do have rolls and
yeah, yeah.
whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
But
So Ken mode's null. I'll just leave this in. It's suffocating and noisy as fuck, but you have to pay attention to the lyrics because overall, this album is the equivalent of a civil war going on within your brain. Um, yeah. Check out episode 203 where we spoke to Jesse about this album in detail, in lots of detail.
yeah,
Okay, number four. Uh, this is where Temple of Void summoning the Slayer comes in for me.
okay. And for me, it's making an appearance back again on my list is Kardashev Liminal Right. And
Okay.
I'm going to go quick on this because I know you want to talk about Summoning Slayer. For me, this was the revelation of 2022. Like I had not heard or like spent time with Kardashev, and it's fucking beautiful music, man. Like there's like so many different elements and just how seamlessly it kind of fits all together. And it's even talking to the band and stuff like that, and just realizing how fan involved they are. I
Mm-hmm.
ended up signing up for their equivalent of what they've done. They did start off a Patreon, but now they call it the Enlisted Travelers Program.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, like now when you go on their website, you actually see my name as one of the people who are supporting them, which is kind of cool. I think, and I think this is the like 2022 version of like supporting your bands. But I really like. enjoy them. And just the fact, like, they've got like streams happening, they've got like Discord chats happening. Uh, it now I've already got like demos of their upcoming stuff and things that they're working on. So that's really cool. And I'm really excited for what these guys are going to do in the coming years, because I think it's just like the start of what they've been, even though they've been around for like 10 years or so.
Mm-hmm. I've had this in my albums to listen to. I've heard it once, but yeah, I will be checking it out definitely more. Temple of Void, yeah, we've spoken so much about it already. Um, the Death Doom album of the year to zone out to, one that I've been using a lot when I need to be with and process my own thoughts. As I said before, I think this is the band's most grown up album till date, and also should be the one that catapults them to greater success. Check out our chat with the band on episode 187. And yeah, just do that. Just do that. So cool. Coming into top threes. You want to guess what's
Okay.
my number three?
If it's Black Braid, I'm gonna just fall
It's not
laughing
Black
right
Braid.
now.
Okay,
Thank
cool.
God.
It's not Black Braid. Why? Is Black Braid your number three?
Yeah, Black Braid is my number three. Because we cannot
Okay,
do
cool.
this 2 years in a row. Like, come on. We
It's
cannot
fine.
have
See, I've
similarity.
got, okay, full spoilers. I've got Black Braid on my list too. But at number three for me is actually Night Voices of the Coronian Moon.
Hmm.
So
I
the
forgot.
album
I
that
forgot. I thought it was,
we've
yeah.
already discussed, right?
Hmm.
That's why it's surprising, right? Because
Yeah.
the second half of the year hasn't really been kind to Voices of the Coronian Moon, because this was the album that I'd already declared as my number one pick for the year in the week of its release, like way back in March 2022. Um, the album is the soundtrack to everything heavy metal was, is, and should aim to be. It's the Bret
Hmm.
Hart of metal music at the moment for me. Um, to know more, check out our chat with the band on episode 174. Let's talk Black Braid.
Dude, this is like my notes, and this was one of the spoilers I had put in the episodes I put out. But like for me, I think one of the things I've realized, like in the last couple of years, it's not just about music, right? It's about like everything else that comes in. Because I want to spend time, I want to like go down that rabbit hole, I want to read up and find out stuff. And I have to be very honest. I had not bought into the hype of Black Braid singles, right? I only
Mm-hmm.
like got the album and I was like, hey, you told me
Likewise.
about it.
Yeah,
So let's check
likewise.
it out. And oh my God,
Oh
I
my
was
God, what
not
an
prepared.
album. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just not prepared because I'm like, what the fuck? Like, it took me back, honestly, uh, to listening to like, the early Immortal,
Yeah, right?
Emperor, like what I fell in love with black metal, right? It
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
brought all of that back. And one of the things I like is it's not trying to, like, while I do like Emperor, it's not taking that grandeur. It's taken that Emperor kind of arrangement with the Immortal kind of fucking ferociousness. Like I still remember listening to uh Immortal, I think it was Sons of Northern Darkness. By then they were still this, but like, it's one of those things I love about music. It triggers memories in my mind. And
Mm-hmm.
like when I
Mm-hmm.
heard Black Braid, it brought back, a
It makes
17,
you,
18 year
yeah,
old.
it reminds you of why you fell in love with black metal of all things,
Yeah.
right?
And then you get to know the band, then you understand that, he's not trying to fucking tell you a story of someone else. He's talking about his own
Exactly.
freaking stories, what he's experienced, which made me fall in love far more with it. I mean, like, so much so that I was actually looking up how do I buy merch, and then I realized, well, it's the US, so shipping is
Yeah, it's a
crippling.
pain.
Yeah. But hey,
Huh.
fingers crossed, we'll figure out a way. But yeah, man, I really enjoyed the album. And from what I've seen on social media, he's already started recording the second album. So
He'd
you know what?
mentioned that to us too,
Yeah.
right? In
So
our chat
yeah.
with him.
So
Yeah.
there's definitely a lot more to look out for. And I think like I'm just wondering like if he's already like number three on my rank, what's it going to be like in the next few years, right? But really, really excited and yeah, very happy. I mean, so
Okay.
that's me on Black Parade.
Okay. Cool. I'll talk more about Black Braid eventually.
I have an inkling, but trust me, I think you'll know my top two. It's mine is like kind of
Okay,
predictable.
cool. So wait, I think we'll match our number twos
Really?
because number two for me is Wormrot's Hiss.
Fuck! How does this happen, man? Okay, should let's just do two and one back to back. Okay,
Okay, cool. So number two for me is Wormrot Hiss. Is
number
it
one is Wormrot Hiss. It's the album of the year.
number one for me is Black Braid One. And
Wow.
number two for you was
Undead, it's time to rise from the grave.
Not Surprised.
And
Yeah.
yours was?
Number two was Wormrot Hiss. Number one, Black Braid with Black Braid
Oh
One.
man. How does this happen 2 years in a row, guys? Okay, where do we
Okay, wait,
start off?
1 second, 1 second. Cool. So if Wormrot is your number one album of the year and my number two album of the year, then collectively Wormrot becomes Horns Up's album of the year, with Black Braid coming in at very close number two, like 1A and 1B almost, because Black Braid is my album of the year, but it's your number three album of the year,
Hmm.
right? Huh. Let's first talk Undeath, because that's the only album that you mentioned earlier, because I knew didn't it come up on your half year list
Yeah, it
too,
did. It did.
right? And was pretty high up on that one as well. So yeah, what has kept Undeath's album on your final list, and that too at number two?
I mean, okay, let me put a disclaimer. If Wormrod didn't release an album, then this would have been number one. Because it was easily, for me, it's a death metal album of the year, right? I mean, I think, like I said about Black Parade, right? I can say the same thing about Undead. It's that fucking grimy death metal kind of thing. And it's not trying to, like, just to draw an analogy, right? Remember the retro thrash
Mm-hmm.
movement that was there? While these guys are doing exactly what Cannibal Corpse and all were doing, they're not trying to bring back a movement. They're just staying authentic to themselves. And that's the cool part. I mean, like, they also hilariously released a live album uh, in there. And when you, it's not like them trying to be like, hey guys, we're like brutal and stuff. They're just like joking around and having fun in their things, right? It's that kind of vibe. And I mean, even if they didn't release the live album, which is, I think, easily one of the ways, again, you can kind of get the vibe of the entire band. I just really enjoyed Undeath. I mean, I think them also kind of have gone through that trajectory, right? They did the demos, they've slowly kind of built up the thing. And now that they're on a larger label, I mean, when I had a chat with Alex from Undead,
Yeah.
it had not yet.
Spoiler alert. That's going to be released on Horns Up this month, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can do that. But just to give you a little backstory, right? When I was recording this episode with him, less than 24 hours later, it was going to be announced that Decibel had made them album of the year. And when I was talking to Alex, his mind was blown that the fact that like Decibel is calling them album of the year. He didn't even expect all of that stuff, right? In there. And they've just had like a crazy year. They just announced a show in Australia that they're playing in March. So definitely, I think like when this is not the last we're going to hear again of Undead, and I'm very, very excited because who says metal is dead and death metal
Yeah, who
is
says
still,
that metal is dead? That
yeah,
metal is good and well. It's a great piece of music to listen to, honestly.
yeah.
Wormrot Hiss comes in at number two for me. So I'll keep this very short because we'll get into it in a bit more detail. Okay, so this slab of 21 songs is the oral equivalent to a personal trainer who keeps pushing your boundaries, or in my case, makes me look at my fitness and skills with like musical skills with absolute disdain, and to go like, what the fuck am I doing with life? That's all I'll say about this right now, because this is such a power pack performance. The Black Braid album is my album of the year because it was like finding this hidden lake when you're lost in a forest. Okay, because it's beautiful, it's lush, it's refreshing. At the same time, it's wild, but still so natural and organic, right? It doesn't feel complexly constructed, neither does it feel meticulously planned. It's just black metal, right? And it's such a unique album because it's purely the vision of this one dude who decided to just pursue an idea and try and realize it to the best possible means that he could. And it absolutely hits the spot. The only drawback I have about it is that I wish it lasted a bit longer. Um, Check out episode 195 for our chat with Skaga So Ah, or Jean, which is the easier way of calling Black Braid Black Braid. One man behind this Native American black metal solo project, album of the year for me. How is Wormrod your album of the year? I'm not surprised actually. I actually thought for some reason I kept thinking that the Kardashev album would be your album of the year, and I genuinely thought we'd have a clash for Wormrod at number two.
So, I mean, there's so much, right? First of all, let's go back. For me, Wormrot has been that band that, like, first of all, discovering them years ago, then the kind of music that they put out. Also,
Yeah,
the fact that I'm usually into grindcore, right? And I don't even know, like, if you think about it, in 2022, if you ask me what does grindcore should sound like, you don't want to hear. I mean, like, okay, let's put this way. What is Napalm Death releasing? Like, Napalm Death is also not doing what they were doing, right? And that's what a lot of people are expecting. And then you add, everything else that came along with the album, right? Like, this was
mm-hmm.
Arif's last
Yep,
release with them. So he's like basically poured out everything every ounce that he had into this album, right? And that's just what makes it so beautiful for me. Like, that this is not like, we have 20 songs, we'll put 10 on this album and we'll see what else, right? This is like everything on this album. And every time you listen to the album, you'll always be like, oh, there's this also there. I don't remember this. Oh, wow,
yeah,
they tried this also. There's so much kind of happening on the album, right?
yeah,
Strangely enough, this is the first time that a Wormrod album is released, and I don't have the CD as yet in the year, so I have to rectify that. But I loved Voices, man. Voices was a fucking
Voices was
great
an awesome
album.
album. Yeah,
Voices was a great album, and I keep wondering, like, how the fuck are these guys going to keep topping themselves? And then they come out with something like Hiss. Like, I still remember the way they've also put together everything with
yeah,
his is beautiful, right? You've
yeah.
got they put out those singles
Singles, then
initially
yeah, then three singles combined into one music
combined, which was
video.
that
Yeah,
fucking crazy video.
all
And then
the those jam room kind of videos
yeah,
too.
yeah. And then you finally got like to hear the entire album. I mean, it was no surprise that, I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise to you that I had actually pre-ordered it
Yeah,
basis that. And yeah, man, I think like if someone wants to know from me, like, what is the sound of grindcore or what has it evolved to in 2022, then this is the album I'm giving them. I was like, listen
yeah.
to this. This is what the sound is like. Because just purely how, I mean, they're not trying to be pretentious. They're just trying to be who they
It's just,
are.
yeah, it's just so authentic, so like from the heart. Um, and also it's weird, but and I like it's weird for me to bring this up, but exactly your journey with the band is kind of my journey with the band too. And I think um another reason, perhaps subconsciously, why we really like them is the fact that they are from Southeast Asia and they are from Singapore. So their story is something that we can relate to.
Oh yeah,
And to
100%.
see them having to see them being able to do what they do at such a good level just brings joy to our Indian hearts.
Yeah, 100%. I think like I have to add that, right? I mean, we can't be like, oh yeah, there's a certain level of relatability that we
Yeah.
definitely have, both of us. Uh, and I have to say this, I'm very jealous of everyone who's gonna catch them on their, I don't know, 50 odd day tour across Europe, which is gonna be
Wait,
just
one
like,
second. If I didn't know that. So if they have a tour, do they have a new vocalist?
so they've got a touring vocalist. It's
Okay.
the vocalist of the band Implore.
Okay.
So I had a chat with him a few months ago, and basically the story is that he used to help them with touring
Okay.
in Europe, and because he knows the band really well, when they put out the call for international
Yeah, that's
vocalists,
exactly what Vijesh told us in our chat that they'd rather go with somebody who's familiar rather than going for the best
yeah.
vocalist in the world,
So
right?
basically, he's a road dog, as I'd like
Mm-hmm.
to say.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they're doing like some 50 plus dates across Europe over, I think, 3 odd months. So yeah, they're gearing up for that. So I'm very jealous that someone's going to check. And like uh, some kind of context, when I was talking to him, Gabriel Duco, he was like, I have no idea how I'm like, he's literally like how you explained it, right? He's like, I'm training to be
Yeah.
how I'm going to sing this because it's really something. And it's not just his, right? It's also the back catalog. So how do you kind of put together? So
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to the YouTube videos because I don't think Europe is on the cards anytime soon.
Europe may not be on the cards, but I know we did the math like a few years back, right, about how much it would take to get Wormrot down to India or down to Bombay. Let's redo that math.
Yeah, that would not be
2023 Horns presents Wormrot.
a bad idea. Well, for good reason also, right?
Hey, you'll get the Riot Peddlers to open.
Of course.
Yeah. Okay, for more, just to wrap Wormrot up, for more, check out episode 196 featuring drummer Vijesh Khadiwala. Yes, a Guju boy who's living it up in Singapore playing the world's best
Grindcore.
grindcore music. Singapore may be up on the cards though for 2023.
Yeah, I'm actually very much considering that they're doing that Singapore Rock Fest, and I'm just like seeing the number of bands that are coming down. It's
Mm-hmm.
insane.
Okay,
So
cool. Let's talk dates, etc. about this because yeah. Uh, yay for Singapore. This surprises me, right? Because you have it's such a weird country where it's like it's capitalism to its best form, but at the same time, it's it can be very authoritarian, and yet you have this country producing the world's best grindcore. Such an oxymoron.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Ooh,
I
look at
think
me. I'm using words like oxymoron. But once again, ever since we've been doing this, for the fourth time, I'm repeating myself when we're saying that our top 10 is weirdly that we've, the music and the musicians that we feature on the podcast. Yeah,
I mean that is the reason why we do the podcast, right?
I
Because
know,
we want
right?
to talk.
Exactly.
There's a selfish motive behind it, guys.
We'll ultimately put together the giant playlist of
Oh, I
all
found a
these
hack for it. It's
releases.
very easy.
Oh, yeah. Look at you, Mr. Podcaster.
Trust me, when I show you the hack, you'll be mind blown. Be like, why the fuck do I not know this earlier?
Okay, to know more about Peter's hack, why don't you follow him? He's
At Trend Crusher.
and I'm at Asmoani. This was Horns Up. You've found out our albums of 2022, 2 weeks into the new year. And don't worry because next week we're going to come back and tell you what more to expect from 2023 because there are already quite a few releases that have happened, including a giant one from Obituary, which I haven't heard yet.
Yeah, same. I just added it to my playlist. So
Okay,
yeah,
lots to look forward to. Till the next time, horns up, guys.
horns up.